Hey, Social Psych. We're going to start modules 15 and 16 talking about persuasion. So module 15, titled Two Routes to Persuasion, is going to focus on the two routes to persuasion, but also what elements make a persuasive message persuasive. But let's start with, of course, what is persuasion? We think about persuasion, we often think about advertising, but persuasion, this process by which a message induces a change in beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors, is seen in so many other areas. We see it in education, politics, marketing, dating, parenting, negotiations. We try to persuade others often. So the two routes to persuasion have pretty easy names. One is called the central route, and the other is called the peripheral route. The central route is when you're really, I think of it as somebody is focusing on the center of the argument, right? They're paying attention. It is an interested person engaged and focused on the arguments, and usually results in people responding with favorable thoughts. Peripheral, and we know peripheral means all the stuff on the outside, is when people aren't focused on the central bit of the message, but rather they're focused on the outlying stuff, like how attractive the speaker is, bright, shiny things, right? And we use different routes for different purposes. The central route occurs when really interested people focus on the arguments. The audience is motivated. The processing takes effort, right? This isn't easy. This is hard work mentally, and so you have to be engaged. The audience has to be willing to do some mental work, and they're either going to agree with you or they're going to argue with you. But in the end, it brings about lasting agreement. If you can persuade using the central route, it tends to really stick. Here are some examples of the central route of persuasion. I mean, take a look at this ad for yogurt. That's a lot of work to have to read all of this. But if I'm going to read all of this, I'm engaged and interested. And I'm probably going to pick Chobani from then on because I have been persuaded by using my brain. When we look at candidates and we really dive into where they stand on issues as opposed to relying on the outside factors like what party they belong to or even what they look like, we're using the central route. Again, it requires a lot of mental effort, but it results in lasting change because you've put the effort into it. The peripheral route, on the other hand, as we said, that's just all the outside stuff. And that's when, again, we're influenced by things that don't really matter. We're not influenced by the argument. We're influenced by those bright and shiny things that lie outside the argument. This is what is used and what is useful to use when the audience is either not involved or doesn't want to be involved. They just don't want to put the mental effort into it. Not a lot of processing is required, not a lot of thinking. And in terms of the persuasion, it does often trigger liking, but that's usually temporary. The peripheral route does not bring about the long-lasting persuasion that we see the central route do. Some examples of the peripheral route, when we just focusing, we're not going to get into a big long list about what's great about the Hardee's burger. Instead, we're going to use sex to sell the Hardee's burger. There's Katy Perry and Pop'ems, nothing fake about them. I like this one. Buy our product, we're on a billboard. That is about as peripheral as it gets. Here's an attractive man. We're not talking about the benefits of Old Spice. We instead are talking about paying attention to the bright and shiny things. So again, it may create persuasion, but it may not be long lasting. Some interesting things about this mindless persuasion that we engage in. And your book doesn't go into these, but I found these statistics to be pretty interesting. One of them is where merchandise is in a store. It feels like forever since I've been to a store, so I'll pay attention to it more the next time I go. But studies show consistently that products that are at eye level are bought consistently more. They outweigh things just a little bit lower by 57%, and they're outpurchased by 75% by the stuff that's on the bottom. We're also more likely to purchase stuff that's at the end of an aisle or near the checkout. We grab those things. Again, we're mindlessly being persuaded by just where something belongs. They studied what types of ads and what types of peripheral cues are the ones that are more effective, and it finds that animals, babies, and sex appeal are way more effective than cartoon characters or historical figures. And as I was thinking about that statistic, I thought to myself, I haven't really seen too many cartoon commercials, I think, but there are a lot of sex, baby, and animal commercials. Another really funny thing is we tend to be persuaded by bundle pricing. We are more likely to buy an item at 2 for $1 than 1 for 50 cents, because this, in our very quick automatic processing mode, feels like we're getting a better bargain. So talking about that central versus peripheral and how we process the dual processing model, the central route is all about having to take the time and use the effort, right? That is not our automatic thinking. That is our deliberate thinking. It's that system 2 stuff that takes time and effort. While the peripheral route is definitely system 1, it's focusing on just our emotions, our immediate reactions to things. And it can slowly build those implicit attitudes. We're making associations between an object and an emotion. And actually, this is classical conditioning at its best, harking back to Gen Psych. But it's just quick and easy and doesn't require a lot of effort. An interesting thing has been found that in ads, the central route seems to be disappearing. We are doing a lot more of just sex and babies and instant emotion to get people to buy things. They did an interesting study looking at facial expressions, in particular happy expressions, and they found that somebody's facial expressions, a happy facial expression, is a better predictor of product sales than their own opinions given in a survey about how persuasive they found the ad to be. That's kind of fascinating. We're so triggered by our emotions so much more than other elements of it. Okay, so that's the central route and the peripheral route. You have a social psych in my life that starts with that element, but then gets into some of the other elements we're going to talk about. And in the next video, I'm going to go through what other elements of persuasion influence us.